Okay, what we're looking at today is 12.2, analyzing survey results. With this, what we're going to do is we're going to summarize survey results. We're going to evaluate survey results. So that's what we're going to learn about today. First thing we're going to do is look at measuring central tendency. So you have all this data come in from the surveys, and then what we're going to do is we're going to measure, what's the best way to measure the center point. A lot of times the center point is a very good thing to understand. So we have three different ways to do this. It's mean, median, and mode. Mean is probably the most common. Mean is just the average. Median is the middle point. And mode is the one that happens the most often. So there's pros and cons to each one of those. With the mean, like I said, we average them. We add them all up, divide by the total number. So if you have data points 1, 2, 3, 4. You add those all up and divide by 4. So you have all those. Do the math. Plug, chug. 10. So we're looking at 10 divided by 4, which is equal to 2.5. Right? So that is what we're looking at there. You add them all up, divide by the total number. That's the average, or the mean. Okay? Median. So the median, what you do is you number them out. 1, 2. So you always want to go from smallest to largest. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We look for the middle number. If there's not one, we make that. So we have 4 numbers here. So 2 here, 2 here. We know these are the middle 2 numbers. So you average these two together. So add them together, divide by 2, and we find it to be 2.5. Which this one here, the mean and the median are the same. Mode is the number that happens most often, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we do not have a modal number is what we call that. And so there is no mode on this. Okay. The other thing that we look at is quantitative data and qualitative data. Okay. Quantitative data is something that we can count. Okay. The number of surveys we had in. And that's one of the best ways to do like quantitative. So it's countable sets. Qualitative is something that we're more looking at. You cannot give a numerical data to it. So like if you watch how students interact with each other, that would be a quantitative. So you're just looking at it and you're saying, oh, was that a good interaction? Smiles, things like that. Yes, you can count the number of smiles that you see in a day, but is that a full smile? Was that a half smile? Things like that. So things observed, things you can count. That's really the difference between qualitative and quantitative data. Looking at example number 1, we're going to select a method to summarize the data. So we're looking at this one here. We look at A, nutrition. The table shows the number of calories per serving for each vegetable. You have asparagus, beans, bell peppers, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, celery, corn, lettuce, spinach, and zucchini. And they all have their number of calories next to it. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go through and you want to put your data in there from smallest to largest. So the data from smallest to largest, we look at 9, 9, 10, 14. $17, $17, $17, $20. 25, 28, 30. And 66. Okay. So looking at this data, we have it all numbered from smallest to largest, or labeled out that way, and that's the way we want to do this. Looking at these numbers, we want to say, well, is there anything that jumps out at us? We should automatically go, wait a second, wow, that 66 really jumps out at us. And so if we're looking at central tendencies, and we want to look at the kind of the middle number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're looking at between the 6 and 7. 6 and 7, which happens to be the same thing. So they're both 17. So if we look at the median, that is 17. It's going to be our median. if we add these all up and divide by 12, this one here is going to kind of influence that. And so this one here, mean, might not be the best one just because of this big number. We also call that as like an outlier, something that changes our data. So something that we recorded that goes, wait a second, that just doesn't feel right. So that's why they call that an outlier. So, you know, mean looks like a really nice tendency here. Looking at this, another good one would be mode. You know, the only contenders for it are 17 and 9. Not 17 has 3, so 17 is also our modal number. It's the one that happens the most. So if you're looking for modal number, that's the one that's going to pull it most that way because those are the most data points in that area. So on A, I would say that median would be the best choice. On B, concerts. An amphitheater conducted a survey which they asked 1,000 adults the last time they attended a concert. And so we see the results in the table on the right. At least 3 years ago is 8. 1 to 3 years ago is 15. 6 months to 1 year ago is 45. Less than 6 months ago is 32. Okay, looking at this, and we say, well, we're trying to find the central tendency. You know, I don't know really, you know, what would be the best way to do this, because if we look at the mean, well, we have categories that say, well, it's probably about 6 months is going to be around that mean is a 45 because that's your percentage. So percentage of people there. Mode, we're looking at percentage, so that's not going to be the best thing to look at. Median, the middle point, probably not the best thing to look at there. So on this one here, I don't really see a great way to find central tendencies. So there are times that we have data, we collected good data, and there's just no way to find a good central tendency. Does it say that the data we collected means nothing? No, it does not. It still has a value. It's just not a good way to find the central tendency, or the data that we collected has no central tendencies that we really should even look at. Turning the page, going to example number 2. Example number 2, we evaluate the survey. Okay, this one here, yearbooks. Given the following proportion of the survey reported, evaluate the validity of the information and conclusion. Okay. The question, should a school have an electronic yearbook this year? So results, we have electronic yearbook is 67%, traditional is 22%, offer both is 9%, no preference is 2%. Is a simple ballot, and they place random students' lockers. So we want to make sure that it's unbiased. So they randomly put them out there. You know, they picked every 3rd locker, every 5th locker, whatever it was. And so it's a random sample there. So we know there's no bias there. School should offer an electronic yearbook this year. But they're saying only the electronic yearbook. So we look at this and we analyze and say, is this the best thing? We're looking at it and say, well, that's going to fit truly 76% of our student body, because one of them, the 9% said that they want both, and 67% said they want just electronics. So yes, this would be a viable option for us by just analyzing the data. And so we're just looking at it, analyzing the data, and saying, yeah, you know what, I think it is. The only thing is we have to watch out for is how many students were truly surveyed compared to the total number. So we have to look at our sample size and our entire population. That was from the previous section that we looked at. And so those would be the only other things that we'd have to look at, really analyze and say, is this a good survey or not? Okay. Example number 3. Moving over to the next page, page 749. Example number 3, uniforms. A high school principal is considering whether to institute school uniform policy. She sends out a survey to students in her high school and gets their opinion. The question is, how would you feel about having a school uniform policy? So looking at the table to the right, majority of the people actually said they agree with it. There were a few that said strongly disagree. This is what we look at when we say like a Likert scale. Likert scale, we always want an odd number. Okay? An odd number of responses. Usually it's like a 5 or a 7. The Likert scale, you have 2 to the left, 2 to the right, and 1 in the middle, or 3 to the left, 3 to the right, and 1 in the middle. So strongly agree, strongly disagree, somewhat agree, have no opinion, somewhat disagree, and then strongly disagree. Those are kind of the ways that you do a Likert scale. And what you usually do is you match them up together. So with this, the strongly agree and agree, you would kind of put those together, as well as the disagree and strongly disagree. So looking at that, if we group those accordingly, we would have about 325 that agree with it. Disagree would be 500. So by looking at this and analyzing it, there's actually more people that disagree with it than agree with it. Okay? And that's kind of those catches on those surveys when you're looking at it. You, a lot of times, don't want just a yes or a no. You want to know how strongly is the yes or no. And that's why you put in the strongly agree and just agree. So analyzing that, understanding that is very important. If you do have any questions, feel free to email me, or I can set up a Zoom meeting on any of the questions that we have. Questions are on the Canvas assignment. For this assignment, it's 9 through 23 odd. What we're going to do, since we have the inconvenience of the coronavirus, is we will do the mid-chapter quiz, and you'll do an online Canvas test. It is open book, because I cannot control who uses the book, who doesn't. So, and it'll probably be all multiple choice. So I have to look on the testing and stuff like that. But I would recommend, strongly recommend going through and doing some of these lessons and doing these different assignments that I give, so that way you fully understand what's going on before you just jump in the test. I do plan on putting the test as a time test. So, read the question, figure out what it is, and go on. So that's the way I'm looking at it right now. If you have any questions, like I said, feel free to email me.